From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show. It's great to have you here. You have found us for a lightning round. Zippity zip, fast, fast. Zip, zip, bang, bang, pow. Here we are. I am Sven Erlandson, the host of this fine contraption. I am joined in studio, regardless of where you are tuning in from. We are here in the New York City area. I'm joined in studio by KC over in the booth and Rob the Rocket next to me. Hello, Rob.
Good day, Sven. Always good to see you. I've been involved in a few contraptions in my life. This is one of the better ones, I must say.
Well, it's a bit Rube Goldberg and a bit more Rube Goldberg.
Yeah, I guess it is.
I think it is.
But it works.
Indeed it does. Here we go. Eduardo is starting us off with, how can I make sure a counselor is qualified? Vetting by education. Qualified depends. For what? And I mean, if you're looking at qualifications, definitely, education, are they licensed, et cetera, et cetera. For the record, I'm not. I am not a psychologist. I am not a medical health professional. I've been an emergency room chaplain, trauma counselor at a hospital, airlines, and so forth, former pastor of many, many years, but I'm a soul counselor. I'm not a psychologist or mental health therapist. And yet, here you are, asking me questions. And I guess my point simply is that there are people out there that can help you that may not always have the qualifications that you might think. In other words, sometimes the people that can help us most are sometimes the people closest to us. A cousin that you trust. An old man at work. I had a young fellow tell me, Sven, weirdest thing. I was at work. I had never heard of you before, Sven. And all of a sudden, this salty old 65-year-old dog on my job, working in the bus yard. I guess they're bus mechanics at, school or for the city or whatever it was. This salty old dog comes over and he noticed that I had been troubled lately and he asked about my issues. And he tells me, he's been following this guy named the Badass Counselor. And, he just wanted to come over and check on me. And he started asking about me. And like this old dude took me under his fucking wing. You never know where that love, where that care, where that person who knows how to listen, you never know where it's going to come from. But in the end, you ask me a straight question, I'm going to give you a straight answer. How do you make sure a counselor is qualified? It's going to be on their wall. It's going to be on their website. But you really can't know if someone's going to help you until you begin to get into conversation with them. And usually, most therapists will give you a 15-minute conversation. Talk to them. Do they ask questions? Do they make you think in those 15 minutes? Do they give you something to think about? Do they have an insight? Is there something? Is there some sort of connection? You don't necessarily want somebody you like, but you want somebody who's going to get results. And you can't always suss that out in 15 minutes or even a few sessions. But at some point, you got to dive in and try, knowing that it's okay to change your mind later if you need to make adjustments down the road. Next question. I have a burning question on dating. On dating a guy that may not be able to commit, but says we are a couple and we are boyfriend, girlfriend. Thoughts? Okay, so you're dating a guy, may not be able to commit. May not be able to. That implies either A, you haven't asked him, or you have asked him if he's able to commit, and he's still thinking about it. But what it definitely says is, you're asking, so what are your thoughts on this, Sven? Okay, that says to me you want someone to commit. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an issue. You wouldn't be raising the question, Harriet. And it's a legit question. You wouldn't be raising the question, but you find it odd that he says we're a couple and we're boyfriend and girlfriend, but you're not committing. So he clearly, it would seem, either you haven't raised the idea of committing or you're afraid to raise the idea of committing, maybe, because you don't want to hear him say, no, I don't want to commit. That would be a rejection of you, wouldn't it? But the bottom line is you want it. He's calling you boyfriend and girlfriend, and he's calling you a couple, but you want more. And until you stand up for what you want, Harriet, you're going to forever be living in fear of losing him. And it takes a boldness to be who you are. And the truth is, if you're okay, it sounds like he's okay coasting and not committing, but it sounds like you're not. So there's fundamentally, potentially a divide in the relationship of what is wanted. And until you matter enough to you to stand up for what you want, you can enjoy the ride for a while, but if you actually want commitment at some point, you may have to let him go. Or at the very least, Harriet, have the conversation.
Similar issue on YouTube, if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
Sven, am I possibly undermining my new relationship by opening up too quickly?
Well, my question, if we were in person, is I'd ask you, in what way do you think that undermines the relationship? See, for me personally, when I was dating online before I met my present girlfriend, we've been together about 10 and a half years. I had about 10 years after my second marriage, but before this girlfriend. And I dated a few times, quite a bit actually, and fell in love twice. And for me personally, this is just me, and I'm not prescribing this for all people. In fact, for most folks, I'm prescribing the opposite. But for me personally, because I'd done a lot of my work and I was okay doing this, I just fucking put everything out there. In fact, when I'd put my profile up, I used OkCupid back in the day. I liked that site. And when I would put my profile up, occasionally I'd get the occasional woman commenting and saying, Sven, where I didn't reach out to them. They reach out to me and they say, Sven, listen, I'm not interested in you, but I got to tell you, that is the single longest fucking profile I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm like, far out. And you want to know why I did that? I put everything out there about me. Everything. You name it. Literally everything. And you ask, well, why the hell would you do that? I did that because if I'm going to go on a date, I don't just want leads. I wasn't using online dating to generate leads of people I can date and then determine if they're in the ballpark. No, I wanted qualified leads, as they talk about in sales. In other words, I want them to know everything about me so that if they actually come to that first date, I know we're already in the ballpark. Now I just got to determine if we're in the infield. Right? I know they're already interested. I know they already know my warts and my flaws and my failings. But that's not what I recommend for most people. Unless you've done fully the work and you're okay just being a free spirit and living, being who the fuck you are. You win some, you lose some. If you're not there yet, what I recommend is roughly a 1-to-1 ratio. Open up a little bit and then see how they respond. Are they receptive? Are they kind? Do they, treat you with respect? And do they then open up? And if they do, then open up a little bit more. Then see if they open up a little bit more. And maybe if they don't open the second time, maybe you open one more time. And if they still don't open up a little bit more, I'd back off. Because otherwise, it's not that you're undermining the relationship per se by opening up more and more when they're not, or if they're not receptive and holding on to you with grace. It's not that it undermines the relationship per se, it undermines you. You're putting yourself out there, you're being extraordinarily vulnerable, and they're not. And as long as they don't have to, most people won't. So there has to be an expectation, really, that you follow through on. That I'm going to put myself out there, and I expect you to put yourself out there. And if you don't want to, that's okay. It's totally okay if you don't want to put yourself out there when I do. But I'm not fucking sticking around, because why the fuck would I want to be with somebody who's not going to be vulnerable with me? Who's always going to keep me in a position of vulnerability. So it's not so much that you're undermining the relationship by putting yourself out there. You're just making your exit harder if you have to exit, because now you've really put yourself out there, and it's hard to let that go. Because it feels good to be vulnerable, especially if they're reciprocating. But if they're not reciprocating, it's going to sort of break your heart, rip your heart out to have to let go and move on. So what I recommend is roughly a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-2 ratio, and just see if they respond. And then just build that trust, build the vulnerability bit by bit by bit by bit, trusting that if it's right, it'll feel good. But then if they do pull back, you haven't totally invested yourself. You've invested roughly the amount that you've gotten back. So the loss isn't as great. Does that make any sense?
Well, Justin, who asked the question, said, wow, that was some powerful insight. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks, Justin. I'm glad I could help. All right.
Or maybe what you meant was the love you take is equal to the love you make.
Well, no, that's not the line. You're talking about the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
No. And the love you take is equal to the love. I thought it's the love you give.
No.
Are you sure?
You're talking to a guy who was 14 years old when the Beatles came to America.
But once, about 9 months ago, you were wrong on a song.
I can be wrong.
I still hold out that rare hope. And the love you take is equal to the love you make. I don't think it's that. Anyway.
Take and make rhyme.
I know they do, and that would be the wise one, but it's John Lennon, Anyway. Or Paul. Okay, fuck off. Anyway, all right, here we go. Next question. Chrissy Dickey says on Facebook, my counselor, after 15 minutes of showing him a folder of horrible posts against me, he spent the next 45 minutes talking to me about his experiences. It's been 2 years, 40 kin lawyers. I can't contact the kids. I feel like my family was raised like a colt, and I was scared to leave and feel my children the same. How do I heal? I keep trying, but I feel I have the wrong genitalia. No offense, 6 kids. I'm embarrassed, if that makes sense. Like, what was I doing? There's a lot there. And to have a therapist who doesn't understand or makes it about them, not good, not okay. If you need to let that therapist go, let the therapist go. But you can do a lot of this healing work on your own, and it requires, Chris, it requires going into it and on your own if you have to. And of course, that's what I wrote the book for. There's a hole in my love cup to hold your hand through the process. But allowing yourself to bring up all of those feelings that you felt, starting with the horrible posts and writing it out. That hurt so bad when this person said, I'm so fucking angry, I want to smash their face in. And gosh, I feel like a piece of shit, just like I've always thought about myself. Whatever your feelings are, keep writing about that. And keep writing about, your feelings with regard to being afraid to leave and your feelings regarding your own children. It's getting into that and allowing it. And one of the questions you'll really want to push yourself on is, what was I taught to believe about myself? And again, this is where the book will really help you identify those things. But what you got to do, whether you have a therapist who's going to help you or you don't, and you can do this healing work alone, you guys, you have to go into that shit and begin to get it out of your system. And if you have someone you can talk to about this, great. That's the purpose of a fucking therapist, especially if you're fucking paying them. But absent that, you got to do it on your own, man. You really do, and it sucks. It doesn't necessarily suck. It's just harder on one hand, at least to get started. But once you do, it's like, wow, it's really freeing. I have people who, as a result of the show or the books or the podcast or whatever, say, Sven, I have fallen in love. I have a new lover in my life. And I'll say, who's that? And they'll say, my journal. I share everything with my journal. My journal's the best fucking friend. I can tell my journal anything. I can swear at anybody. Sometimes, Sven, I'm pouring out so much fucking emotion that if I ever go back to read it, I literally can't read what the hell I wrote. That's how powerful, that's how much it works, that your feelings were so intense, so powerful, that you were just writing so fast in such big letters that later you can't even read it. That's beautiful. I love that. Not that everybody has to have messy writing. That's not the point. The point is when it is, wow, that's a great, great feeling. All right, next question. What do you think of a man who asks for money after only texting online with him for 5 months? And the resounding chorus from the choir is, run away. Asking you for money after 5 months? Now, I mean, if it's $5 for a Starbucks, hey, fine, whatever. Okay. But assuming it's a significant amount, honestly, I wouldn't do it. It's a setup. And Barbara right under that says scammer. Yeah, exactly. Pam says run. Marie over here on TikTok is saying run. Yeah, that's a bad sign. At the very least, don't give money. It dances with chickens over here on TikTok is saying scam. Asking for money is a romance scam. Right. So don't give it. And don't give it, and don't give it, because they're going to keep trying, and they're going to try to wear you down. And at some point, you either realize this is what they're all about, or at some point, you just keep saying no and watch what they do next. But don't get into the money thing. Don't. That's one of the downsides of social media is, apart from everybody yelling at each other about politics, the other side is everybody's trying to steal somebody's money. Do you know how many fake accounts have been made about badass counseling on TikTok? Do you have any idea? I'm constantly, literally almost every day, I have my assistant or my business manager go in and see if there are any new accounts. We get them on Facebook too, and we're constantly having to report them. Of course, TikTok does almost nothing to shut down fake accounts. There's one right now that has 150,000 followers. It is called Badass Counseling, but they changed the spelling on like counseling or something. My picture, all of my videos. My name, my company is trademarked. The name of my book, trademark, copyrighted. They're using all my shit. I've got a lawyer on it, but TikTok is like, fuck off, Sven. My point is they're using my name to try to scam people out of money. Just for the record, folks, I'll never ask you for money. I'll say, please keep your money. That's your money. All right. Next question. Crystal says, you've helped so much over the last 6 months. I'm going no contact. I'm finding out my dad wasn't my biological dad and his death. You are going into it. And you know, it's crazy, Rob. I've had so many people lately telling me that they discovered that his dad, in every case, their dad wasn't their dad.
Yeah, I hear these stories.
And it's crazy. And I've had so many lately. It's like, whoa. It's like a glut of them.
Ancestry.com.
Amen. Yeah, and some people don't want to know. Some people, it's, everybody's different. Everybody's different. Here we go. Adult daughter is upset that the ex and I still are arguing about the divorce. I feel I'm correct. Do I reach out or wait? I'm assuming you're asking, do I reach out to my adult daughter? So my adult daughter is upset that the ex and I are still arguing about the divorce. I feel I'm correct. Should I reach out or wait? Do you wait for what? Or do you reach out for what? Or because if you're arguing with your divorce with your ex, that means you're still in conversation with the ex, something, I guess, and maybe you are correct. I'm going to just tell you my experience. In 2007, 11 years after the divorce from my first wife and having gone through hell and just sort of getting raked over the coals by her and her father, who was a big shot lawyer and all this, I finally decided I'm done fighting. There's a cloud in my life. I knew it was casting just this, my own energy, even if I never discuss it with my kids, which I strived to never do. It was just this negative aura, and I didn't want it for me, and I didn't want it for my kids. So I basically said, I told all my troops, it's like two enemies were encamped on opposite sides of a river. I told all my troops to load up all of our weapons, load them into a couple of semis. We loaded up all of our weapons against my ex, and we drove across the river. We parked the semis, left the keys in the ignition, and we drove back. Or walked back, excuse me. And we got shelled for a while. But in the words, you guys have heard me say it before, in the words of the great Nez Perce Native American chief, Chief Joseph, I shall fight no more forever. I was done fighting. I didn't give a shit anymore. If I lose my kids forever, so be it. I am done fighting. I can't and I won't do this anymore. And a cool ID, you want to fight. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You believe you're right. You want to fight? Fight. That's okay. Obviously, your adult daughter is sick of it. So I'm not sure what exactly you're gaining other than the joy of being right.
Hey, Sven, when is it good to discuss divorce arguments with children? I would argue never.
Right. Well, adult children, if they ask.
Even still.
See, for me, if they ask, it's them ready and wanting to know. I mean, like when they're adults. And I think that helps them discover the story of who they are. The truth is, I've forgotten so many of the stories from my marriage, my first marriage and divorce. Fuck, we got divorced we separated 20, almost 9 years ago. You don't think I've forgotten a lot of that shit? So if they ask, otherwise, just what's gained? You're just placing so much pain onto that child's heart. You're causing them to think ill of the other person. Now, and I am not a fan of that. That being said, if the other person is disparaging you to the children, you at the very least have a right to defend yourself. Now, if you choose to disparage the other parent, that's on you. I'm not advocating that. I'm not speaking against it. That's an individual decision. However, I am advocating for defending yourself. You have every right to do that.
Agreed.
And just to follow up a cool ID, you believe you're right and you want to fight this fight with your ex, and that is your right. I reached a point where I decided I wanted to be happy, not right. I was okay letting go of being right. And so I did, because I just wanted peace in my soul and just in my energy, and I just let it go. And, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but for me, it just, I had to give myself permission to lose. And then my life could go on, because I was still holding on to that fight and, the desire to sort of metaphorically punch her in the face with my arguments and so forth. All right. And just for the record, and it could also be that what you're wanting, maybe not, but what you're wanting by sort of winning the divorce argument is to have your daughter see it your way, potentially. And what I hear your adult daughter saying is, fuck you guys, I'm just sick of this shit. Would you just get the fuck over it? And can we all get on with a new life? But you guys are still back there slugging it out. And your old adult daughter is saying flatly what she wants. And she sees you both as losing and potentially as losers, because you're stuck in shit that she has no interest in, and she's pissed at you both. Get over it. Grow the fuck up is what she is likely saying, or at least thinking. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, if I were to guess, that's probably what she's thinking. All right, next question. Why do I feel like I don't deserve to be happy? I'm in a healthy relationship, or a good job, or nice things. In other words, basically, you feel like you don't deserve anything. Why? Simple. It's not easy necessarily to solve, but it's not. If you do the work, it can definitely be solved, and it doesn't have to take forever, Jen. Why do I feel like I don't deserve to be happy in a healthy relationship, a good job, nice things? Why? Because you have been so conditioned to believe that you suck. You are conditioned to believe in your childhood that you are not wanted or wantable, or that you are not loved or lovable, or that you don't deserve love, or that you're not good enough. And or you are taught that who you really are doesn't matter. Your voice doesn't matter. Your feelings don't matter. Your essence doesn't matter. And that's what I talk about in the book when I say those core beliefs get pressed into the wet cement of your soul, deep down inside, imperceptible to that child when it happens. They're feeling stuff, but they don't know what they're feeling because they don't have the words for it yet. In fact, most adults don't know what their core beliefs are that were pressed into their soul, which is what I wrote the book primarily for. There's a Hole in My Love Cup isn't just to help you get out all your feelings of your trauma, of your past. It's to help you, most importantly, to identify the core beliefs that you were taught to believe about yourself that were never true to begin with. By identifying, by naming the beast, the healing process begins. Naming the beast is half the problem. Being able to articulate what the real problem is that's afflicting your soul. And invariably, it's the core beliefs you were taught about yourself. Much more to come right after this short break.
So I was telling a buddy of mine how he seems happier. He told me about the book that changed his life. So I bit. I went to the Badass Counseling website and downloaded There's a Hole in My Love Cup audiobook. I started listening to it on my commute home from work, and holy cow, it was a Louisville Slugger to the face. I literally sat in my car in the driveway night after night, listening through to the end of a chapter or doing the journaling exercises. My wife started to see changes. I started to change a lot. My default response stopped always being anger. Now I manage a team of salespeople, and I changed as a leader. I was listening more, not always just reacting. When their numbers started going up seemingly out of nowhere, I knew what the reason was. There's a Hole in My Love Cup is now required listening for any person on my sales team or working for me, and I gladly buy it for them. You gotta listen to this book.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Hi, guys. We've got some more questions here. We're bolting through a lightning round. Heaven asked the question, how do you move on from a compulsive liar that you made many great memories with? I'm struggling, in all capital letters. If you're struggling and you have many great memories and all those great memories and the love are flowing through you, you have to, it's not always the bad stuff we have to flush out. You got to flush out the good stuff. I would write that person love letters that you don't send. I would go to your favorite places that remind you of that compulsive liar that you made many great memories of. I would wear that favorite sweatshirt of his that you kept. I would go to that favorite restaurant, sit at the bar and journal. I would go for the walk in your favorite park or watch the movie you guys used to laugh your asses off at. And while you're doing it, be journaling. As you're crying through all your fucking tears, journal about all you're feeling as you remember him. Do everything in your power to hold on as long as you can. And the more you hold on, and the more you welcome those feelings up, eventually the grip gets tired and you effortlessly open your hand, and that's when you're done. But you have to welcome the feelings up. Next question from Bohemian Cat City. Clever. Advice on moving to a new city alone? I feel scared but excited. How do I get over the fear? Scared but excited is how you feel when you're on the roller coaster, the new one that you haven't ridden yet at the amusement park, and it's going tick, 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 tick on that first climb up the big hill. You're scared, but you're excited. The scared is the thrill. The scared is, oh shit. And so you have an entrepreneurial spirit at Bohemian Cat City. You do. And how do you get over the fear? By going into the fear. Just like I was telling Heaven with the love. Go in, start writing about everything that you feel. Fuck this, I'm so afraid of this happening. And what if I don't find any friends? And what if nobody likes me? And fuck, I'm really scared about this job because I don't know anybody there. But I must say, I am excited about X, Y, and Z. Just start flushing it all out, writing it all out. Hell, write a letter from yourself of 2 years from now. Yourself of 2 years from now is writing a letter back to you. Pretend that you are yourself of 2 years from now, Bohemian Cat City. And say to those things that you most want to hear from your 2-year-old 2 years from now self, or that you see that person saying to you after you have wonderful success. Just keep flushing it out, baby. Just keep flushing it out. Huia says, Advice on current beau staying at ex-wife's house with adult kids and young grandchildren. That's one of those that could go multiple ways. That could break multiple ways. In some families, that's not a big deal. It's really not. I mean, my girlfriend, we've been together 10 years, and they have a child together. They raised 2 together, but 1 biologically, and he spends holidays with us. I love the guy. I swear to God, nice guy, and so on and so forth. And so we're all just cool with it. But I'm old. I'm 56. She's 60. He's 50, whatever, 4, whatever. No, we get along. And so for some folks, it's okay. But for some folks, it's not. But you don't think we got to the point of okay without a lot of fucking conversations? Have the conversations, because clearly it bothers you a bit. This is one of those that could break either way, or it could be just plain fucking weird. Like, what are you doing there? Oh, I like being around my ex-wife, or, some shit like that or whatever. But if you won't know what's going on until you ask and stay in the answers and press for your answers. And then at some point, you've got to get a read on you. You got to flush out all your feelings and then see where it sits inside and ask yourself, is this about me, or is this really about him? Or is it really just about me and my own insecurities? And that's a question only you can answer. Here's a quick one over on Facebook. Then I'm over to you, Rob. Louise asks, my husband has narcissistic traits, but I don't think he's a full NPD. I love aspects of him, but he's so childish in our home. He's a different person outside the home. Okay, so we established that he knows how to act differently. I've completely pulled back from him, and he hasn't even asked me why, i.e. he doesn't give a shit. I feel very unseen and uncared for. He's a man-child. Is there any way around this, or is divorce the only path? I don't want this path. Any way around this. Interesting word choice. You didn't say any way to solve this. Anyway, you basically said, maybe, and it was maybe you were casual with your language, but it's interesting. How do I get around this, sort of scoot by it? There isn't an easy way, but you stand up for yourself, state what your needs are, and see if he responds. Just be honest. The beautiful part about being straightforward, honest with someone is that when they respond, they're not responding to lack of clarity in your question. Your question is clear, and they either say, you know what, you're right, and I do need to change, and they take action to change, to which your response in your head is, thank you, you just showed me who you are. That they actually intend to, and they follow through on the change. Or they say, I don't know what you're talking about, or fuck you, or yeah, I don't think so. And to which your internal response is, ouch, but thank you. You just showed me who you are. And that makes walking away much easier. But I think you may find if he has narcissistic traits, he is a man-child, you feel uncalled for, I think you may find that, yes, this is moving in that direction of divorce, because you don't want this path, and yet this is your path, unless you make effort to change it. And if he doesn't meet those efforts, yeah, it's fucked. Rob, what have you got?
Over on YouTube from Adela, Sven, my dad died when I was only 3 years old. I'm now 28. My mom has only talked about him 3 times throughout my life, and those 3 times she has talked bad about him. How do I heal from this?
Wanting to heal, and presumably what you're healing from is that your dad is a part of you, and your mom speaks ill of something that is someone that is a part of you. And how did dad died when she was 3?
That's right.
Wow. Yeah, your mom doesn't have a right to do that. And it could very well be that your mom, and I hate to say this, and this may not be the case, but it could very well be that your mom sees any feelings you have for your father as a breach of loyalty towards her. Like, I raised you. I'm the good parent. He died, which sounds insane to even say, but I'm the good parent. You should just give me your love. Forget about your dad. Oh, he was stupid. He was stupid, or he was a bad provider, or he was a bum, or he didn't really love you. All that stuff hurts. So how do you heal? First of all, why don't you tell your mom, you don't have to say it this way, but shut the fuck up, Mom. Please don't speak ill of my father, because regardless of what you may or may not think of him, he is my father. He is a part of me. In fact, hey, what do you know? 50% of your DNA, at the very least. She doesn't have a right to do that. It's just like, what Rob and I were talking about earlier, this notion of, do you have a right to disparage the other parent, or talk about the divorce? It's like, you don't have a right to the child to disparage the other parent in a divorce. You just don't have that right, because it hurts the child more than it makes you feel good. It hurts the child more than it in any way helps the child. Your mom is hurting you. And if you don't make that known to her, I hate to say it, but she may have no way of knowing that it hurts you. But you ask how you heal, write her a letter, call her every name in the book. Or if you need to stand up and say something to her, stand up and say something to her. But at the very least, you should stand up and say, please don't do that anymore. And she's going to deflect, defend, dodge, deny in all likelihood. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, honey. I never did that. Or, oh, please, it's not that big a deal. Or your dad was a bum. And you got to be, if you're going to bring it up, you got to be prepared for those responses. You got to be prepared for the fact that you're not going to get the response you want, which is, shit, you're right. I shouldn't have, and I won't do it again. Assume the worst.
Don't send the letter.
And thank you, Rob. And don't send the letter. Why? Because if you're sending the letter, people always ask me, Sven, how you say write these letters you don't send? Why not send it? Doesn't it make sense? Stand up for your voice? Sure, if you want to. I'm not going to stop you. But if you're writing the letter and sending it or giving it to the person, you're likely doing it because you want something in return. You want a response. You want affirmation. You want vindication. You want acknowledgement. You want an apology. And if you're doing that, then you're going to write a very different letter than if you're just writing it for healing, because healing, the purpose is to get it all out, and you don't have to send it in order to do that. And that's a very different letter. But if you're doing it to try to get something from the other person, you're doing it with a sales pitch. Oh, I can't use this language. He'd get pissed. Or, oh, I can't bring up that. There'd be too much blowback. All right, so then you're doing it because you want something versus you're doing it to heal. If you're doing it to heal, don't send the letter. It's not necessary. All right, we're going to take a couple more here. Now that our boys are teens, my husband has become so consumed with, she puts in quotes, growing and stretching, end quote, them, but in a negative way. All he concentrates on is the bad things they do. It's ruining our marriage. Advice? Isn't it fascinating that him concentrating on the bad in your sons is ruining your marriage? It implies that it causes you to dislike him. Either that and or his being negative on the sons is also being turned on you. Whatever the case, clearly you don't like it. Our boys are teens. Husband has become so consumed with what he calls growing and stretching them, but in a negative way. All he concentrates on is the bad things they do. What's your advice, Sven? So basically he's criticizing your kids. You know what's interesting? I've had a few clients recently who have parents who said, and one of the clients is in her 50s, another one is in her 20s, and a gentleman in his early 40s, I think. And interestingly, I've had a confluence of these recently where all of their parents felt it was not only their right, but necessary for them to criticize their children. Isn't that fascinating? I hear that and I'm like, what the actual fuck? What asinine fucking parenting theory is it that you should criticize your child? And what one of them said to me was, oh yeah, the gentleman said this, oh yeah, my father believed that that's how it's good for children to get feedback. And I said, even if it's bad constantly? He says, oh yeah, my dad just believed that. I said, that's the biggest crock of horse shit I've ever heard. You want to destroy someone's character, that's the way to fucking do it. So that's what I'm saying to you, Sarah. He's tearing your sons down, and here's the ugly part for you. If you don't stand up against it, you are being complicit. If you do not stand up in defense of your sons, if your sons should ever find themselves in a counseling office with me, I will ask them, one of the first questions I will ask them is, did your mother defend you? And if their answer is no, they have every right to be just as pissed at you. And I know that doesn't feel good. And I know you probably want to tell me to go fuck myself and you want to wring my neck right about now. But the bottom line is that the child needs your counter message. The child needs to hear, because if there is no counter message, the teen child assumes that what the parent is saying has some truth in it. Even if the child rebels against it, the child feels, well, no one's giving me a counter message. It must be true. I must be dog shit. I must be a fuck up. I must be a loser. And so you've got to be saying, you're wrong. Don't ever speak that way to our sons. Don't ever speak that way to our sons. Don't ever speak that way to our sons. And you need to turn around and say to your sons, don't ever believe that crock of shit. You're good boys. You're doing fine. All right? Or whatever message you believe they need to hear. But your obligation is the counter message. Otherwise, they will believe that shit about themselves, and it will afflict them until they're fucking 70. And I ain't even kidding. All right. Here we go. She broke up with me because, while she loved me, her insecurities took over. Any advice? I got to be honest with you. I have had this happen. I told you guys that I fell in love twice in between my second wife and my present girlfriend, whom I've been with for 10 and a half years. Fell in love twice. And in both cases, the woman said exactly that. I love you, but basically I'm afraid of this, or I can't, or I'm not good enough. And they pulled out. And we've all, I think a lot of us have had that experience of someone, maybe even yourself, pulling out of a relationship because you're fearful that you're not good enough. Or if they knew the real me, they wouldn't love me. Or I was with a woman in a long-term relationship early in my life, and she pushed me away. And what we discovered many years later is that she pushed me away because she was sure that I would push her away. And so she did it to save herself the pain. It was less painful for her to push me away than it was for me to inevitably, at least in her mind, push her away. So your question is, any advice? Yeah, you lost that one. You tried, and it wasn't, I hate to say it, meant to be. Or someone else decided it wasn't going to be. And so you have a lot of pain and sadness in your Rube, and you have a lot of love still, and all that needs to come out. And that's why I teach different techniques in the book for flushing all of that out of you. And you have to. Otherwise, you're still going to have one foot in your future maybe, but you're still going to have one foot in the past. That means any relationship you go to in the future, you're still going to have one foot stuck in the past, even if you press that way down and say, oh, I'm over it, and deny it and suppress it. It's still in you. And that doesn't mean you're going to be pining for that old person. It means you're going to have unresolved pain, sadness, grief, love inside of you. And that shit rots. It's just like a peach. It's peach season. It's pear season. You leave that peach on the counter long enough, it's going to rot. It doesn't matter how sweet the peach is, it's going to rot. You know what happens when peaches rot? Fruit flies. You know what happens when peaches rot? They get moldy. You know what else happens when peaches rot? If you have it on like the windowsill and you have a painted windowsill, it's going to stain your fucking windowsill. All right. You have rotting peaches inside of you. And it's the love and all that. And it feels like all sweet and everything. You leave that in there long enough, it's going to stain you. Fact. Next question.
Here if you need me.
Oh, yeah. Lay it on me, Moo Cow.
All right, Sven, here we go. Marie from YouTube says, I've blocked a lot of my childhood out of trauma. Now it seems those memories want to come back, and it makes me dislike my mother even more. Why now when she's finally out of my life?
Because it's safe. Because it's safe. Because you no longer, in the past, your soul is communicating with you, and it's like, we need to heal this shit. Your soul is sending up those pains, sending up those memories. Your soul is basically saying, this, who we've been, is not who we are. And I'm taking command of the ship. And this is why I write about in my book, and I write about in Badass Wisdom, my other book. The soul is more powerful than the will. You can try to willpower your way, and you had to shut down those memories to survive. Your brain just naturally did that. That's a beautiful mechanism in the human brain. But now your soul is saying, we got to fucking heal. And it's finally safe because you have room. You don't have your mom both in your real life and inside of you. You had two moms really before, the one from your past and the one in front of you. But now the one in front of you is gone. So now you can finally conjure up and slay the mother of your childhood and her voices and all her bullshit messages. So it's a gift. But it's also your soul saying, whether you believe it or not, it's your soul saying, you're ready. It's time. Next question. Why do you think I'm afraid to rely on myself to make it on my own? In all likelihood, Tamers, is because you've been taught that you're not good enough. Don't trust yourself. Don't trust your own voice. You've likely been taught that you aren't enough, you aren't good enough, and that you're a fuck up. So you've got some core beliefs inside of you that are causing you to, basically in your life, you have one foot on the accelerator of the car and one foot on the brake. And you're stopping and going at the same time. Something inside of you is working against you, and it always goes back to core beliefs, which is why I wrote my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, to walk you through the process of identifying those core beliefs. And if you want the audiobook or the paperback or the ebook, just go to badasscounseling.com. But that's why you're doing it, and you need to flush those out, but it requires identifying it first. Again, that's what the book is for. Amanda Frick asks, my 14-year-old female child dislikes time with her narcissistic dad, but it's court-ordered. How can I help? You can you can get her a therapist if she doesn't have one already, so she has someone to talk out her issues with other than you. And you can be a person that she can come to without fixing and without judging. But to have someone who is not intimate into the story, an outside person, to listen and offer insight and so forth, that is my recommendation. Get her a therapist, Amanda. Another question here. Why doesn't my 19-year-old son ever talk about his feelings? We were always so close. It may not have anything to do with you. Maybe it does. Maybe he thinks, he's sick of you judging him or always trying to fix him or your own neurosis, or you get so making it about your feelings that he doesn't even want to share. And it's like, fuck, can I have my own feelings? Maybe it's one of those. Or maybe he's a normal 19-year-old that just wants his fucking privacy. And it has nothing to do with you. Rob, did your kids ever go through a phase where they really didn't want to share with you?
Like every other kid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty common, Mom. Don't worry about it. You're doing just fine. He still loves you. I'm sure he still loves you. Got
a softball for you.
Yeah, right over the plate, Daddy.
Okay, Megan on YouTube. Can I ask you, how do you know if it's right to go back with someone that cheated on you?
Oh, how do you know if it's right? Honestly, all right, Megan, I get this one pretty regularly. I wrote a book on infidelity. It's out of print presently, but how do you know if it's right? If you have to ask yourself if it's right, Megan, it's not right yet. I mean, this is the ugly answer. This is the answer no one wants to hear. And this isn't just about infidelity. This is about any sort of breakup or where somebody's caused you to distrust them or you don't like the relationship anymore or it doesn't feel good. Make them prove themselves over time. And that time part is the part that sucks. That's the part you don't want to hear, is it, Megan? You want a decision now, or maybe your partner, ex-partner does. There's the push. Got to happen now. No. The only way you'll know there has been change if you see change over time. One of the things I talk about is the minute you walk away from a cheater or for someone who's hurt you and you're just sick of the relationship after 23 years or 7 years, whatever it is, they're going to change their tune. When they want you to stay, they'll change. They can change so fast. And all of a sudden, they're being everything you always wanted them to be. And you're like, oh, fuck, this feels so good. This is what I always wanted. Oh, he really does love me. Oh, or she really does love me. Oh, my God, this is so great. Yeah. And then you go back, probably. And then it doesn't take long, very often, before they slide right back into the old behaviors. They went to therapy twice and then they stop. They no longer are asking about your day. Shit like that. You want to know why? Because they didn't change. They just knew exactly what you wanted and they gave it to you to get you back. They don't want you. They want what you bring to their life. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that should really scare you. Two things. One, that they made those changes and those promises and so forth. And it's just like, this is what I've always wanted. That should scare you. Why? Because it says they've known what you wanted the whole time. How did they change so quickly without you even having to say it? Or maybe you said it once or twice again, but you've said it 500 times, but all of a sudden now they change. That says they knew the whole time and they didn't change then. And they're only changing now or putting on the facade of changing. Why? Because they stand to lose something. They're manipulating the fuck out of you. It should scare you that they're changing now and they're doing everything you said because they could have done it before and they don't care about you enough to do it. At least until you're leaving. Second thing that should scare you even more is it doesn't matter if they've changed. How long should you wait before taking back a cheater? Wait until you have changed. And if you're still thinking about whether or not to take them back, if you don't have clarity of self, you haven't changed. Well, why do you have to change? Because you're the one that's going to have to hold them to it if they start to slip. It sucks, but your boundaries are your responsibility. You have to protect your boundaries. You have to stand up for you. And if you haven't done the work of healing your own self after you've been cheated on, after you've been massively hurt, if you haven't healed yourself, you're never going to have the strength to follow through. Your boundaries are your responsibility. Am I blaming you for what they did to you? No, fuck no. I'm just saying moving forward, don't expect them to follow through, especially if they've claimed to change so fucking quickly. Oh, it's been 3 months. 3 months. I'm a totally different person. Yeah, no, you aren't. I mean, unless you were counseling with me, you had a shot in that case. But no, you're not. You're the same person. Fuck you. So how do you know when it's right? After they have fully changed, more importantly, after you have fully changed, such that you are your authentic self and you can hold your own boundaries. And I'm going to take one more question. Rob, did you have one? Otherwise, I do.
Go right ahead.
Stephanie asked the question, how do I help the man I love realize that it's okay to let himself love me? He's been through a lot in past relationships, so he's jaded and honestly scared to death to let himself feel the good feels. How do I help him? Well, first of all, you help him by just love him. Keep loving him. But if he's jaded, truth is, you don't want to go too far down that path of getting in a relationship with someone who's jaded and distrusting. You don't. Because as long as he gets your love for free without having to heal, without having to do the work to heal himself from his past, you're basically giving him a free pass to carry that past into your relationship and treat you distrustfully, even though you haven't done anything to be distrusted. So what you need to do is simultaneously love him, but also tell him, sweetheart, if you're not going to open up and love, I love you and I want to stay, but you have to. Well, I've had all these bad experiences. Well, then you got to fucking heal them. If you need to get a therapist, but you can do it yourself. You got to want to do the work. But that means you have to hold his feet to the fire. And if he's not doing the work, you have to understand he is going to carry that distrust and that pain and that closed down fear through the relationship as long as you let him. And that doesn't mean you hold his feet to the fire constantly. It just means you say, I need this because I have my needs too. I want to be with someone who's open to me, just like I'm being open to you. And he is scared. So you give him love and you give him encouragement. And you also say, sweetheart, you got to do this. You really do. And he does. And at some point, he has to push through his fear of feeling all those feelings and flushing those feelings out because you matter enough. And either he's going to do it or he isn't. And that's an ugly truth, but you'll know who he really is. And you'll know what he really thinks of you if he's willing to push through his pain to be more present to you. Well, fine humans, this has been a lovely experience for me. I think this is the best thing I've done all day.
A lot of good feelings there for everybody.
I think so. Spread a little love today. Challenge a few folks. We got challenged, got stretched on a few questions. Rob, any thoughts for us today?
That was my thought. A lot of good feelings spread around. A lot of heavy thank yous we got for a lot of your answers today.
Oh, Rob. Oh, now I have a softball for you, Rob.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Guys, Rob is now going to answer a lightning round question if he desires to. Jill, on TikTok, Rob's taking your question. And if, he doesn't want to do it, I'll jump in.
Also, I'm editing this, so.
Well, but you're live for the moment, baby.
That's true.
All right, here we go. Folks, this is to Rob the Rocket. Rob is going to answer this one from Jill on TikTok. Jill asks, Rob, I'm putting Rob in front. She didn't set it up for Rob.
Sven.
Rob, is getting into a relationship with a younger man of 28 years too much of an age gap?
Why are you giving that one to me?
It seemed like, I don't know, you have a lot of experience in life.
Yes, well, age is just a number. And as that commercial says, mine's unlisted. And my wife, whom I love dearly, and we've been together quite a number of decades now, is considerably younger. And we don't think about that much, except she said, well, we should have a home on just one floor because when you get old, you're going to have to be able to get around. Other than small considerations like that, which we haven't had to deal with yet, it shouldn't matter. I mean, there are practical considerations that are real, and they can be serious issues. But if you talk about it, and listen, it's less than 20 years difference, okay? And,
not much, but yes.
And what I say is, as long as your present wife is at least 10 years older than your oldest child, it's okay. How's that for a rule?
Okay, and Jill is the female in this case, and she's asking, is getting into a relationship with a younger man of 28 years too much of an age gap?
If he's good with it and he understands the limitations and what the future will look like. Look, when I first got together with my wife, she said, I said, aren't you concerned about the age difference? And she said to me, just give me 20 good years. So now that we're in that far, she says, didn't mean it.
I'd like 20 more.
Like 20 more. And who knows? I'm in decent shape for a person of my advanced age. And I'm hoping to stay that way. Thank you very much.
You are in excellent shape, my man. And I want to just ask you one more question. Okay. Speaking for Jill, is getting into a relationship with a younger man of 28 years too much of an age gap? There's fear there.
Of course there is.
What was your biggest fear, or what is likely Jill's biggest fear, or what would generally be a reasonable fear to have in that case?
I was hoping I would be able to always keep up with my wife, and so far it has not been an issue.
Does that mean you do keep up, or
Yes,
the fact that you can't keep up is okay?
I do. No, I do keep up. Actually, it's sort of gone the other way.
And fair enough. And it could be that Jill feels that maybe he won't love her, in 10 years when she's, has wrinkles or when she, whatever it might be. And I guess, you just take it one day at a time, 1 year at a time. And you, in the end, as with any love, you may get your heart broken. But what the hell else are you going to do? Just live, man. Just
love who you love.
Love who you love, baby. Love who you love. Well, folks, this has been fantastic. Rob, well played, well played, well played.
Okay.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, my friend. Same to you.
You are my Padawan learner. All right. That was...
Out of what?
Exactly. All right, folks, thank you so much. And on behalf of Rob the Rocket, KC in the booth, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.